Thank you so much for joining me for Winning Wednesday. And I love your setup. It looks very official.
Yeah, I've been ever since we've kind of been stuck in place. I used to be on the couch over there with AirPods. I did go to WPI. I studied biomedical and electrical computer engineering there. I thought I was going to design medical devices when I got out of college, and I did that for 3 months. And there was two things that I realized. One is that I wasn't very good at that, and two was that I was much more interested in the customer than the technology, and how the technology made a difference for the customer. Yeah, so the event strategy is on hold. I hadn't recognized when I started doing this, but now we're starting to see is that there's a ton of value with the person, the guest that you invite, and how they pre-promote the event and how we package the content for them. So Justin says something super smart. I give him a 2-minute clip. And then if he wants to, he can post it on LinkedIn. He's got 30,000 followers, and that brings a lot of awareness to us. And so I believe that execution, when we can do them, is the best execution in B2B digital marketing for all those different, because of how much scale you get with the asset afterwards. I've always, especially when you have a well-defined list of people, I love the idea of going to those 70 accounts and creating a podcast about what they care about and calling it something nice so that they would feel honored to be on it. I don't know what it is, but like the CMO podcast, if you're trying to sell to CMOs, sounds like a good idea, right? And so I would do that. And then I would go and talk to all 70 of the exact ideal customer profile in a non-sales situation and interview them, which then obviously brings awareness to you. And then I would reproduce and repurpose that content and send it to the other 69 people. Just by giving the people the information, I found that a lot more people were educated. We had augmented our outbound, so our outbound channels were doing better, which was really interesting. And then our inbound channels were generalization, but a lot of companies, whether they'll admit it or not, are seller-centric. When it comes into the last week of the quarter and they're behind plan, they go into full seller-centric mode. And they'll tell themselves that they're buyer-centric and customer-centric, but when it comes down to it, their actions don't map to that. Through that process, you're doing things to create the volume of leads, which is not buyer-centric, like following up on people that attended a webinar to learn, and all of a sudden you have them in a sales cadence, or downloaded an ebook to learn, and all of a sudden you have them in a sales cadence, or all of these different actions that have no buying intent, and you're pretending that they do so that you can try and sell them something. And I've done this experiment at 3 companies. If you pass inbound leads that are high quality demo requests, sales conversions directly to account executives, your win rates are better and your revenue is higher because it creates a better buying experience.
The customer is not in that buying frame of mind. They're just looking for more information. People always hold information close to the chest because they're afraid if they give it out, the customer won't actually buy from them at the end of the day. And then in terms of qualifying leads, there's no content behind even what the outreach should be focused on.
When you wait for a inbound sales conversion, most often people have already qualified themselves in. A lot of companies will do this incorrectly, which is that they'll pay to drive traffic to a landing page to funnel people into a sales conversion, which by design will create lower quality. Myself in their shoes. And I was like, okay, if I send Brandon 10 bad leads, what's the likelihood that he's going to follow up the 11th one that I send him? It's happening to me today on LinkedIn, and it's happened since I started to recognize this, is that a lot of opportunities present themselves when you help other people, but you can only help other people when you know what you're talking about. I really struggle to think that you can call yourself a marketer if you don't spend time in the market. The key thing is by entering the situation with no sales intent. And so even marketers, I don't think can be disciplined on this one, but people are not open to helping you if you're coming in with a hidden agenda. And so the idea of like, and I said this yesterday and a guy challenged on me, and I feel very comfortable saying that I've never posted a piece of content on LinkedIn with the thought of how this is going to get me a sale. It just doesn't phase my mind. And because I think that way, the content actually hits. It actually brings value to people, which then leads to sales. But if you do it with sales intent, it actually changes the content. I see that in I would say most B2B companies fall into that trap. And if they were able to remove themselves from the outcome, they would actually get better outcomes. I am not advocating for 100% inbound model whatsoever. I believe that most companies should have some type of blend, 50 to 65% inbound and the rest sales sourced. However, the way that I operate is 100% inbound. So like if I go and visit somebody and I learn and they want to work with me, they know where to find me, right? And so I think it's a really interesting kind of like mindset. And I'm also really interested in showing people over time that you can build a substantial business without having a huge sales team. I hire people out of SaaS companies that have run demand gen or worked on a demand gen team. And so like a lot of agencies are going to hire someone directly out of college, and I'm going to sell them something, and then I'm going to hand them off to a $50,000 employee that doesn't know what they're doing. That's not how we run our business. And so like I hire people that are smart, and over time I will empower them to produce content for their own channels, which then helps them build their brand. And a lot of companies don't want to do that, because then there are a couple of things. If they're in my seat, one, I become vulnerable to them leaving as they build a brand. Like I want people to win. Like if somebody on my team gets 100,000 followers and outpaces me and starts their own company, like I'm happy for them. Like they were going to win anyway, and they're going to think good things about me helping them get there, and that's going to have some type of ROI in the future. So like I work closely with everyone on my team and kind of developing their skills and their execution, mainly on LinkedIn, but in the future probably podcasts as well, because it's good for the brand. Like that's how I see it. I feel like every company could take all of their employees and give them the tools to be successful in those, which would roll up into a lot better business results for the company.
Small business owners or CEOs of their own brand and their own company have to be spurred on by something internal. And, because you're leading your vision from the front. And yes, you can surround yourself with smarter people, but no one's going to care about the vision and the goal as much as you will.
I think giving people a lot of space where they can have ownership over something. So I get some feedback from people that I'm like not clear enough about what I want them to do, because I want to give them so much flexibility to use their brain, because they're all hire smart people, and give them goals and let them work to it. And so I could probably be more directive at some points in helping them steer, but like we have a vision. I think they stay motivated, because I do believe that whenever we look back at this 3 or 5 years, like we'll have built the best demand gen firm in the US. Like I do believe that that's where we're going to get to. The process is very clear. It works way better than what's happening today. And so hiring good people, keeping them motivated on that vision, and just comes down to execution. I think that we will look back and be able to fulfill that. How do you go and build the job for you? Like the job that the company hired you for probably isn't the job that you should be doing. You need to get in the company and figure out what your real job should be. And that's how I feel like, one, you build a career that you love, and two, you stop making these like incremental steps, waiting 2 years to go from manager to senior manager, and start really moving your career forward by making a business impact. To really form this on like the marketing or go to market piece is that I believe that companies should have that this current situation is forcing companies to figure out things they should have figured out 5 years ago. They should have had a policy for remote work 5 years ago. They should have had that figured out, not been forced to do it. They should have figured out how to do digital marketing, not just run trade shows. They should have figured out how to produce content and empower their salespeople and their marketing people and their product people to produce content on LinkedIn. But they didn't. And so I think that the people that adapt and will emerge as winners, and the ones that go back to doing it the same way that they did before this, which I think there will be many. I think many will go back and continue to do the trade shows and go back into the office and do the exact same things. And I think those companies will be increasingly vulnerable. The time that we've been stuck at home, I've just kind of used it, instead of using it as a negative, I've tried to move it to a positive, which is kind of how I look at life. I appreciate the questions. A couple of the questions are like kind of new directions that I hadn't talked about before, which is awesome.